What does it take to win in the NASCAR Cup Series playoffs? Pretty simple. Don't lead the most laps. I'm Daniel McFadin, host of Dropping the Hammer with Daniel McFadin, presented by the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette, and we're here to talk about William Byron's last-minute win in Sunday's race at Texas Motor Speedway. And with me, as always, is Jared Haas, my co-host. Jared, did you know that in the first 4 races of the NASCAR Cup Series playoffs, the driver who led the most laps didn't win? Did that occur to you?
Well, remember last year when it was like 4 straight races where a non-playoff driver won a race. So, the more things change, the more things stay the same. It's one of my favorite phrases in racing because it's so true.
But yeah, through the first 4 races of the playoffs, the driver who led the most laps in each race did not win. And in 3 of the 4, the top 2 drivers in laps led didn't win. The exception was last weekend at Bristol Motor Speedway when Denny Hamlin led the second most laps and won the race. But yes, William Byron streaks in with 6 laps to go at Texas Motor Speedway and takes off for the win, his series-leading 6th win of the season, and also scored Hendrick Motorsports' 300th overall Cup Series win.
This came out of nowhere for William Byron.
It did. Like he had like an average running position of like 13th.
Yeah.
He
didn't even
Sunday.
score stage points in stage 2, and you know what? Right place, right time for William Byron is the case. There's a phrase that Byron lucked himself into a win. Yeah, you can luck yourself into a win, but you got to be in position to luck yourself into a win, and that takes skill.
And at I guess the lucking themselves into position, it started basically when J.J. Yeley had his crash. There's 23 laps to go, and Byron was one of the drivers and teams that stayed out for there, and that resulted in a little bit of chaos for the rest of the race because Kyle Larson, who led 99 laps, wound up crashing on a restart while fighting with Bubba Wallace for the lead, and then on lap 257, we had a 6 car wreck, which then allowed William Byron.
Everyone hit the wall in the front stretch. One car hit the wall and another one, and then everyone backed up. And that proved the pivotal caution for William Byron, able to position himself on that restart where Bubba Wallace and Chase Briscoe were side by side. Bubba Wallace choosing the high lane. And while they were bogged down in the corner, William Byron came low, going into turn 3, passed him, and set sail for history.
It was somewhat similar to what happened in the Xfinity race with Justin Allgaier and Parker Kligerman going for the lead, battling for the lead there in turns 3 and 4. They both get loose, and then here comes John Hunter Nemechek just streaking in to get it. So a 400-mile race at Texas Motor Speedway, down from the traditional 500 laps. 500 miles, I'm sorry. I don't know if I could have sat through another 100 miles.
You have in the past.
I know, but this track has now taken that same position that like Dover and Pocono did. It's like, hey, remember when this race was 500 miles?
I will say at least Dover needed to be 400 miles for how grueling it is, but I will at least give credit to the fans. They showed up in the heat and in droves. That, like I said, I don't know about droves. Compared to 2021 when I was there, which was a nicer condition, it was a lot more crowded there in 2023 than it was in 2021. But
the race took 3 hours and 14 minutes to complete. We had 11 cautions for 55 laps, 55 of the 267 laps. And 22 lead changes. But Bubba Wallace, who started from the pole, his second career pole, led a race high 111 laps and wound up finishing 3rd behind William Byron. And also Ross Chastain, who also came out of nowhere there that final stage of the race to get that second place finish. Only his second top 5 since winning.
Yeah, he was up there. It was, Ross Chastain and Bubba Wallace had the good speed off the truck. Both of those drivers are in the top 5. And, I mean, it's a good for Ross Chastain, who's been around that cut line and is able to right now he is in the playoffs for the next round of 8 after one race. So that puts himself in a little bit more comfortable position compared to he's only here's 10 points to the good. So I'd still like to take a few extra points into Talladega, but if you just race smart, stage points, you should have at least a decent day, even if you get wrecked out at the end.
Yeah. So William Byron, this is good for him. This is really good for him. Coming into this race, he'd only led like 1 lap since his Watkins Glen race, and so he leads the final 6. Now he's got 7, and advancing to round 8, and also potentially the final race at Phoenix. He has career wins at all 4 of those races, so he's now sitting pretty good if you're that number 24 team. So here's a little bit of audio from William Byron about. First off, he addresses whether he thought he had a shot to win at all late in the race, with Kyle Larson seeming to kind of have a control on things, and then his thoughts and prospects over what will eventually be the final 4 races of the year.
To be honest, I wasn't thinking about the win. I just couldn't put myself in that mindset where we were running. I mean, we were running 5th to 6th, and I felt like that was going to be a good points day. And I think, honestly, for me, that's what I had to focus on. Like, I can't give up free points. So I was just trying to focus on my job. I think my crew chief had more optimism that we had speed to win, but I was just thinking about trying to, get to the end of the race and get a 40 to 50 point day. So once Kyle crashed there, obviously the door was open, and I think the first time it was open, I didn't do a good job with the restart, and so I was kicking myself for that, and then was able to nail the last one. So I think after it all transpired there with 11 to go or whenever, that's when I thought I had a shot.
In the standings coming into round of 8 and then going to Phoenix.
Yeah, I mean it's I'm a bit reserved. I think we've got to keep working and keep steadily kind of climbing our way forward. I think there's a lot of good teams out there. So it's really hard to get ahead of yourself with this next gen car, because it's really all about nailing the setup and nailing the weekend as a whole, giving the right feedback, all those things. So still have some work to do there, on my end, but I think we're very capable of winning at all the tracks. It's just a matter of trying to put it all together. So I'm excited. I think we have opportunities there, and hopefully we capitalize.
All right, so we've heard from William Byron. We got 2 races left in this playoff round. Jared, who do you think is feeling good exiting Texas, which was supposed to be the safe race, the most pivotal race? And then we wound up having 11 cautions with incidents involving about 17 cars.
This is the most, like I said, this is the most unpredictable round and the hardest round.
Yeah.
This is what I call the round that separates from the men from the boys. You can stumble a little bit like Martin Truex Jr. and, even though you have a big points lead, fall down, but you still can make it to the next round. You could have, but if you're below the playoff cut line and still make it in. But this is where this really separates some of the good drivers and not. And, I'm looking at like Kyle Busch, who could have, I predicted of a sneaky championship 4 run. Now he's the one in most danger that has to make moves. And
17 points below.
17 points. That is, you can win the 2 stages at Talladega, and that makes it up. But still, I'd rather not have that happen. And But I'm feeling sitting pretty. Obviously, William Byron locked in. I think Denny Hamlin's the only other driver that I'm like, okay, I feel fine going into Talladega. We'll see how it goes. But Chris Buescher on down, a lot can happen.
Yeah, but so right above Kyle Busch is Ryan Blaney, who, after he had a quiet, uneventful first round, comes in this race. He earns.
He gets wrecked out. He was involved in that final wreck.
Yeah. But he was in. He earned 2 stage finishes. Finished 7th in the first one, 4th in the second. But then he has a speeding penalty, puts in the back of the pack, and then he gets wound up in that final caution of the race, which collected 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 cars.
Yeah.
So, but he was the
and it included Eric Jones as well. Eric Jones was one of the faster cars, probably. Between Bubba Wallace, Larson, and Denny Hamlin, Eric Jones was within that conversation, and he was collected in that rack as well.
But no, like Hamlin, Blaney should feel good going to Talladega. He's finished second there the last 2 races.
Yeah.
And he also has 2 career wins.
He was
there.
contending in the win for the spring, and was trying to, like I said, trying to get around Bubba Wallace. They drifted up, and Kyle Busch was able to scoot on by.
So yeah, those are 2 of the guys who got question marks over him going to what is bound to be a chaotic race where okay, so we'll get to it when we get to the preview.
Let's run through the top 10, shall we?
Yeah.
We got William Byron finishing 4th, as we mentioned. Ross Chastain 2nd. Bubba Wallace is in 3rd. Christopher Bell finished 4th. Denny Hamlin was 5th. Kevin Harvick was 6th. Brad Keselowski finished in 7th. Daniel Suarez was 8th. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. was 9th. And 10th was Chase Briscoe.
Yeah, Keselowski, once again, finishing well when it counts with his 7th place finish. He now has 5 straight top 10s, and he's 9 of the last 12. So he's just consistently consistent. And that right now he's +8 on the playoff. But if you keep running like that,
he was below the cut line going into this race. So he was able to leap bound all that and able to put himself in position to put himself +8. It's the RFK way.
Yeah. So we touched on it at the start of the episode about leading the most laps, not winning. Bubba Wallace leads 111 laps. He came into this race, again, not having any playoff points after the reset. And he basically does what he did in the first race of the last round. He moves himself up 3 spots on the board. So he's now the first one out, -2. So Jared, what would you do if you're the number 23 team? They went for the win, didn't really try to get playoff points, and stage points, and only wound up with 2. So if you're in their position, do you go for the win or do you go for points?
Well, lessons got to be learned, especially I look back at the springtime at Talladega where he was up front. I mean, when circumstances were different, but if he would just finish second, that was 26 points that he left on the table. So first, he must finish in order to be contending on that. Obviously, you want to be running up in front and getting those stage points. I think that's an easiest way to secure points in that stand, but you can't be running risky around in this type of stuff. But if you're around that cut line, try to get those playoff point, those stage points, try to win, try to get even a playoff point that Bubba Wallace does not have. If he wants to advance to the next round, at least have another point when it resets. But Bubba Wallace, lessons, how can he put these tough breaks, like I said, what he had at Talladega, what he had this week at Texas, because he was hard on himself in the post-race interview. Yeah. It's taking those little moments, those little situations. How can you learn on that? How can you expand on this type of stuff and applying it to future scenarios like going into Talladega next week? But I find it interesting to know it feels like Bubba Wallace's playoffs is, it mirrored a little bit with the first round, right? You had Darlington. We didn't really have Bubba Wallace on his radar. Performed well, was able to be within a couple points in the playoff. Now we're going to a race that arguably favors Bubba Wallace. Yeah. We saw at Kansas, and now we're going to Talladega. But Bubba Wallace struggled at Kansas, and that was when he got 19 points below the cut line. So nothing is guaranteed in this sport.
Nope, it is not. Another standout, well, Denny Hamlin continues to show how fast he is. He didn't lead any laps Sunday at Texas, but due to late race contact on pit road with his teammate, Ty Gibbs, which Ty Gibbs and pit road at Texas Motor Speedway name a more iconic duo over the last...
I think it's a space between the cars, yeah. But no, pit road contact against teammates again? Man, this is like the second time in 3 weeks that this has happened.
But the contact between Gibbs and Hamlin left pretty significant damage on Hamlin's right side of his car. But it
ended Gibbs' day.
Yeah. But Hamlin was able to keep going, and he finishes in the top 5. He still had a high performance car despite that damage, which I thought that shows you how fast they are.
It seemed
right
like
now.
the only driver that was within that Kyle Larson zip code, even though it wasn't right on top of each other, was Denny Hamlin. So definitely a fast FedEx Toyota, and I mean he's definitely turning up the wick at the right time.
So if you're Kyle Larson going forward, he's currently led 213 laps in the playoffs, and you're going to Talladega where you're not good.
You're in the eye of the storm.
Yeah, you're not, but he's not very good at speedway racing these days. Just overall, most of his DNFs have come at super speedways this year.
I'd argue it's just the wrong place, wrong time. I mean, you had that Daytona. He was, I think, running within the top 10 for the 500 and then was wrecked on that final lap. Talladega, a victim of circumstances with Ryan Preece's car coming up the track. It's just the Kyle Larson runs in the eye of the storm in the super speedway races. And, he's trying to contend there, and he just gets involved in this type of stuff. And, you got racked up cars for that. So I think it's important, as I mentioned with the Bubba Wallace, scoring stage points for those drivers that are around the cut line to guarantee that you at least have some points leaving Talladega.
So who do you feel better about going to Talladega, Bubba Wallace or Kyle Larson? Because Larson's +2, Wallace is -2.
Well, you could also factor in, too, where we're running after Talladega, Roval.
Yeah.
And it's kind of the complete opposite, where Larson's pretty well on the road courses and Bubba Wallace is not. I think the Roval's a little bit more predictable. I give the slight edge to Kyle Larson, but again, Talladega can really throw things on the top of its head. Bubba Wallace.
What happens at Talladega dictates what you do. At the Roval.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So,
but I think it's still, I'd rather have somewhere that I have a little bit more control where I'm good at than kind of more the unpredictability, right? Because what could happen to Bubba Wallace could happen in the springtime where he's contending for a win, one bad block, and loses all those points.
All right, so that should do it for a recap of Texas Motor Speedway. We'll now move on to our news roundup for the week. All right, so silly season news continues to get published on a regular basis. Today, we're recording this on Tuesday. This morning, Junior Motorsports announced that Sammy Smith, the 19-year-old Iowa native who drives for Joe Gibbs Racing in the Xfinity Series, will jump ship there and come over to JRM to drive the number 8 for that team next year. He will do that with mostly in connection with Pilot J sponsorship, which has past history at Junior Motorsports when it sponsored Michael Annett in the one car for years.
They have those connections there.
Yeah.
Like I said, those, I think, like TMC Trucking as well.
Mm-hmm.
They've been big supporters of Sammy Smith, and I believe it's like Sammy Smith's father is really good friends with them at Pilot and TMC, and they've obviously have a good relationship with Michael Annett and Junior Motorsports, and took that opportunity to go to Junior Motorsports. So it made sense in that, and I think this, the culture change of Junior Motorsports will help Sammy Smith grow. I think that's going to be a good thing where,
he hasn't been a top performer this year. He has one win, which is at Phoenix earlier this year. Other than that, 5 top 5s and 12 top 10. So it hasn't been lights out on his front.
It's interesting most of the time when you think of Joe Gibbs racing drivers, you're just thinking of winners.
Yeah.
They're going to win, like John Hunter Nemechek, Denny Hamlin, those type of things. But, looking at the pipeline.
When I was getting ready for this episode, I was like, oh, man, it's been kind of a down year for Joe Gibbs Racing. And then I looked up, it's like, oh, no, it's they've won like 12 of the 28 races so far.
Yeah, Toyota's took up the wick a little bit. But Here's the thing though. There's not many rides in the Toyota Cup Series that are, in the Cup Series for Toyota that are really, open. You had Denny Hamlin just signed his thing. Mm-hmm. You have Truex, he's re-signed for this year. Ty Gibbs not going anywhere. Christopher Bell, he's still there till 2023, but nothing's yet. But John Hunter Nemechek signed for the 42. Yeah. You got Eric Jones in there for a while. You got Reddick. You got Bubba Wallace. Not a lot of those drivers are going to be leaving.
I had to find this tweet. This tweet was from last year, from an exchange me and our former frontstretch.com colleague Dustin Albino had. This was when Chandler Smith announced that he would be going to colleague racing to compete in the Xfinity Series this season after having competed for Cobblers Motorsports down in the Truck Series. So these are names that Dustin listed off of once Toyota drivers that have since departed Toyota for another manufacturer. And this is in basically the last 6-7 years. Kyle Busch, Matt Kenseth, Carl Edwards, William Byron, Eric Jones, Daniel Suarez, Todd Gilliland, Harrison Burton, Noah Gragson, Austin Hill, Brandon Jones, Daniel Hemrick, Riley Herbst, which I don't remember when Riley Herbst was.
He ran for Joe Gibbs' Xfinity team.
Oh, he did?
Yeah,
okay.
He was in the 19 car. That's when he had Monster. That was before he went to Stewart.
Wow, I've completely memory hold that one. Brett Moffitt and Haley Deegan, then throw in Chandler Smith, and now throw in Mr. Sammy Smith.
But you can cross out Eric Jones' name.
Yes. Eric Jones is returning to the fold with next year since Legacy Motor Club is making the switch to Toyota. So he'll be back.
It was something where it's like, half the field or Cup Series that are driving a Toyotas or have driven Toyotas in their careers. Like there's, Toyota development drivers. So yeah, Toyota, they're in a tough situation. They have a really strong farm system with Venerating Motorsports, and then you bring them up. There's not a lot of Toyota teams. It's basically Joe Gibbs Racing in the Xfinity Series. You have other teams
you have Sam Hunt Racing.
Sam Hunt Racing's the only other team. You have other teams that run Toyotas, but they're not Toyota supports. But that's about it. There's not a lot of Toyota room to run a Toyota in the Xfinity and the Cup Series.
Yeah, like right now in the Cup Series, you have Joe Gibbs Racing in 2311. That's six cars.
That's it.
So now you're adding the 2 with Legacy Motor Club. So that's 8. That's
not even a fourth of the field.
No, it's not. I mean, when it comes to like super speedway racing, Joe Gibbs Racing is always at a disadvantage.
Yeah, because of the strategy and the numbers. It's a numbers game.
Does 2 cars help?
It helps, makes a difference in a pack.
Yeah.
I'd rather be running a pack of 8 cars than a pack of 6 cars.
So Joe Gibbs Racing brought this on themselves back in 2016 when they had the 4 cars up at the front of the pack at the Daytona 500. Just had the field on lock and no one could get to them. And then all the other manufacturers like, oh, we could do that?
Yeah.
And then it's been everyone racing with your manufacturers every year since. So they brought this on themselves. So... but yeah, I'm curious to see after the Legacy Motor Club edition if Toyota will make any significant moves in the years afterwards to further bolster their numbers, because they keep, like we just rattled off all these names, all these prime elite drivers who they've had to either force out or get rid of or have just lost to other teams because there's not enough room at the end on a regular basis.
But here's the interesting thing to note with Sammy Smith heading over to Junior Motorsports. That opens up a ride in the Joe Gibbs Racing stable, right? And the 19's a part-time car. Sammy Smith is going to Junior Motorsports. John Hunter Nemechek's going to the Cup Series. Mm-hmm. There's nothing really set for the Xfinity Series program for Joe Gibbs Racing.
Like, who are the Toyota drivers in the Truck Series right now?
Well, there's Corey Heim, but apparently there's not. I thought he would be somewhat of a candidate to go to the Xfinity Series. Bob Pockris said that he is not. But there's not a lot with the Toyota. It's mainly Thor Sport Racing drivers, and you have the Gray brothers. There's a few other drivers like Tyler Ankrum, Jake Drew. You got Sawalich that's going to be the star for the next couple years for the Joe Gibbs Racing stable, and you've got Sean Higueroni as well. So there's a fill in, but the question is 2024 going to be the gap year for Joe Gibbs Racing before their next crop of prospects come up there?
It's fascinating because JGR for so long has been the team in the Xfinity Series, and all this still feels like it's in some ways like fallout of Kyle Busch leaving. I feel like there's been a lot of dominoes from that. Saying,
I said, that KBM going to Chevy changed a few things around there, especially in the truck series. So we'll wait and see if the Toyota is able to expand even more, but it doesn't look like that's the case so far.
Yeah. All right. One other minor news item, a bit of a fun one, for this weekend's race at Talladega. Stewart Haas Racing is going to be fielding paint schemes from the 2006 Will Ferrell movie, Ricky Bobby, Talladega Nights, for their cars, driven by Chase Briscoe and Ryan Preece. They are the Wonder Bread scheme and the Old Spice scheme. Briscoe in the number 14 will have the Old Spice scheme, which makes sense because Tony Stewart was sponsored by Old Spice for a long time, and Preece will have the Wonder Bread scheme. I'm not a fan of that movie. I think it's awful, but the cars look good. And
oh no, is this gonna be an off-season topic about Talladega Nights on why you think it's a critically bad?
It's just objectively bad. It's horrible. It's a horrible representation for the sport, and it's the last major motion picture to come out where NASCAR was like the real focus of it, and it was played for laughs, and it's just awful. Like I don't count the one with Daniel Craig, the heist movie with There, thank you. Logan Lucky. Do you not remember Logan Lucky?
No, I don't really watch
Oh, wow,
movies.
that came out in 2017. Yeah, has Daniel Craig,
the artist?
Daniel Craig, the actor.
Who's the British singer I thought it was Daniel Craig was the British singer.
I think it's Sam Craig.
I have no idea who but no, Channing Tatum was also in it. But it's about they plan a heist of Charlotte Motor Speedway. And NASCAR is like, it's relevant, but it's only tangentially involved. So the racing was the focus of that movie.
Anywho's.
Anyway, no, Talladega Nights came out in 2006, and I hate it. It's awful. But the cars, like I said, the cars are good. The cars look good.
It's a paint scheme.
Yeah. So, yeah, you can tune in for that to see those schemes on the track. Hopefully they don't get destroyed. So,
Ryan Preece has already flew through the air once, so
yeah.
We don't need that again.
Help me, Tom Cruise. Help me, Oprah. Anyway. All right, let's move on to our official preview of this weekend's race at Talladega Superspeedway. All right, race number 5 is upon us in the NASCAR Cup Series playoffs, and that will be with the Yellow Wood 500 at Talladega Superspeedway, which will be 1 p.m. Central Time, Sunday on NBC. Not USA Network, NBC.
Just plug it in there. Just plug it into NBC for the rest of the season.
For the rest of the season, thankfully, the rest of the playoffs will be on NBC. Hopefully maximize the audience that gets to watch the race. So, Kyle Busch won this race in the fall. Basically, there was a last lap crash.
In the spring.
Won this race in the spring. There was a last lap crash that kind of set the field into disarray, and Kyle Busch came out on top for one of his 3 wins this year with Richard Childress Racing. This race last year was won by Chase Elliott. So we could just run through the usual suspects of guys who will be threats, contenders.
We'll put this into place. Your pick to win is Brad Keselowski, right?
Yeah. Brad Keselowski my pick. I'm picking him until he does it. So Keselowski, Denny Hamlin, Ryan Blaney, Bubba Wallace. It's gonna be those guys. Probably. Yeah. I mean, Keselowski, Michael McDowell should be up there. Joey Logano if he's having a good weekend.
The fours have been kind of off though.
Yeah.
Those Penske and some of those Stewart Haas racing. Some of them are good. Some of them are just really off.
Yeah. So we started off this episode talking about, again, drivers who lead the most laps and not winning. I'll give you let you guess, Jared.
I guess last time.
When was the last time that the driver who led the most laps won at Talladega?
I feel like it's been a while. For some odd reason. Why do I think Denny Hamlin comes into mind?
Nope.
Well, it's got to be a few years at least. It's got to be at least a decade.
No, not that.
Not that recent.
No,
okay.
not that far back.
Gosh, there's got to be some teams.
That's probably more recent than you'll probably be surprised, but it hasn't been in the last couple of years.
Give it away.
Ryan Blaney, June 2020, led 63 laps.
That's right. Oh, I figured out. I was thinking of Craig David, the British songwriter. That's who I was thinking of in the last segment.
Okay.
I'm not
no
that
idea
off.
Who that is. What does he sing? I have no idea.
He sings songs.
He sings songs.
He's born to do it.
Craig David. No idea.
That's how we're ending it. Craig David, baby. But there's a lot of usual suspects. Hey, but you know what? Go to Domingo night, write all the car numbers down, and you'll be there. There'll be 38 cars in this field this time, but there's no Beard Motorsports this weekend, which is interesting.
All right, so yes, I'm going to take Brad Keselowski. He, like I said, he's on an incredible run since the Chicago Street Course race. He's been in the picture pretty much for all of the Super Speedway races this year in subcapacity. So yeah, I'm going to take him again. I'm just going to bet on black or whatever. I don't know. So I'm going to bet on Roush Racing Blue.
RFK Racing.
RFK Racing Blue, yeah.
I thought it'd be submarine. You'd put it under the water.
Okay. So yes, I'm taking Keselowski. Who are you picking to win the Yellowwood 500?
You know, why not back-to-back for William Byron? I feel like this could be another sneaky win for him. Hendrick Motorsports won it here last year in the last fall.
What's his record at Talladega? So William Byron's record at Talladega Superspeedway, he has 3 top 10s and 2 top 5s and 11 starts. He finished 7th there in the spring, 12th there last fall. He finished 2nd in the spring race in 2021. Has he ever led? He's 96 laps led, including a high of 38 in the spring race last year. So, all right, I'm once again taking Brad Keselowski, and you are taking William Byron to go back. Is there anything else that you will be looking out for this weekend on the high banks in Alabama?
Hopefully cars can stay on the ground.
Yeah. After Ryan Preece's terrifying wreck, I don't think we've.
Let's hope for the one calm super speedway race happens at this race.
I don't think we've heard anything about any analysis done on Preece's car for what really caused it to go airborne, have we?
Not on the car. They mainly looked at the roof hatch and the window net. They looked in that roof area.
Okay. All right, but yeah, race number 5 of the playoffs this Sunday, NBC, 1 p.m. Central. So yeah, we will see you here back next weekend when we recap Talladega and preview the race at the Roval, which I will be attending as a fan. So I'm looking forward to that. So anyway, you can follow me on Twitter at Daniel McFadin, or you can email me at adgnewsroom, or dmcfadden at adgnewsroom.com. Jared, where can they find you?
They can find me on the app X, formerly known as Twitter, at Real Jared Haas.
There's 2 people in this world: people who still call it Twitter, and people who think it's okay to call it X.
That's what its legal name is.
All right. We'll see you back here next week. Have a great weekend and enjoy the race, everyone.